You are now listening to the War Report Podcast Network.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the College Loop Podcast. I am Larck, @boytank on Twitter, here to talk to you about the latest Auburn basketball news and do a little bit of not a rant, but a little bit of put my opinion out there about this Auburn basketball team, because this team is now 12-1 after taking down the Monmouth Hawks yesterday by a score of 87-58. Now, Auburn threw up some shots in this game, might I say that, to start off with. 8 of 30 from three-point line. Not a great night shooting from beyond the arc, but a great night nonetheless for the Tigers. You had 2 double-doubles. Of course, you're always going to have one from Janai Broome, 14 points, 11 rebounds. Also combine that with 4 assists, 1 steal, and 3 blocks per the usual for Janai Broome. You also had a double-double from one Dylan Cardwell, who put up a career night rebound in the basketball with 11 rebounds, put that with 12 points, getting his first double-double as a Tiger, and also had an assist, a steal, and 2 blocks on the night as well for Cardwell. So, he gets the MVP of the night, strictly because he's earned it. I love Dylan Cardwell. I love watching him succeed, and I love that he has finally emerged as a vital piece of what this Auburn team is made of and made for this season. He also had a great night scoring from Chadwick and Mazzara. Probably shot a little too much from beyond the arc with 13 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists, and a steal. And also add in the fact that he didn't miss a free throw, 4 of 4 from the night. From CBM, Denver Jones, 100% from the three-point line, 3 for 3, scoring all of his points from beyond the arc, 9 points for Denver Jones, and 3 rebounds, an assist, and a steal. Miles Kelly put up 8 points with 4 rebounds, 2 assists. Off the bench, you had Chaney Johnson lead the team coming off the bench with 12 points. Also had 2 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal. You also had Todd Pettiford, again, 27 minutes, getting some starting minutes last night, correction. 9 points and 5 assists for the freshman. You also had Jakai Howard, who put up some monster dunks in this game, had himself 6 points, assist, and a steal. And Jaheim Hudson rounding out the scores with 4 points on the night with a rebound and a block for himself. Todd also had a block on the night. I almost forgot to mention that. In this game, started off pretty rough up until a certain point. Monmouth was winning this game. At the highest point total or biggest lead of the game for Monmouth, it was 11-6. But Auburn turned that around very quickly and ended up taking the lead and not giving it up, having a lead as much as 38 points. Auburn didn't foul a lot, had 15 to Monmouth's 19. Outscored Monmouth by double in the paint. Monmouth had 20 points in the paint to Auburn's 40. Fast break points a little closer. Auburn had 17 to Monmouth's 10. Turnovers Auburn forced 11 turnovers from Monmouth and was able to put up 20 points off of those. Auburn had 7. Monmouth able to put up 5 to those. Blocks, again, Auburn puts on a block party every single night they're on the court. 7 blocks on the night for the Auburn Tigers to Monmouth's 3. Steals, Auburn had 8 to Monmouth's 5. Assists, 22 from the Tigers to 10 from Monmouth. Rebounds, 46 to 27 in Auburn's favor. Now, again, this is just another great night for the Tigers. You had Abdi Bashir Jr., who put up 15 points, led all teams in scoring. Something I pretty much expected a little bit. But not him leading everybody in scoring, but definitely him being up there for Monmouth. It was a stud last night for the Hawks. But this is a team Auburn was supposed to win, and they did what they're supposed to do. They won the basketball game. They just wrapped up the 2024 part of the season. Getting ready for a conference play very, very soon. Right now on the 4th, they'll take on Missouri in Neville Arena. So, what do I have to say about this Auburn basketball team? It's as I'm recording this, it's currently December 31st. December 31st. I don't know why I said it like that. December 31st. It's a new year. Next to tomorrow. Best thing about New Year's is you can leave your hot takes in the past. And my hot take for today, and I don't know if this is a hot take, I'm sure plenty of people probably could agree with me on this. I fully believe at where I'm sitting at as a fan and an analyst of Auburn athletics, this Auburn team that I am watching and seeing how they play together, this is a deep roster, but we've not seen them against the conference yet. But we've seen them against some tough competition. This team has everything possible to be the best team we have seen under Bruce Pearl, dare I say, in Auburn basketball history. Now, when I say that, I have some evidence to back it up with. Now, I went through and I picked 3 teams that I think under the Bruce Pearl era, now mind you, 3 Bruce Pearl-led teams since he's been here that I think could challenge this team in terms of where they stand all the time. Now, the bad thing about this team right now is we don't really have the full picture yet. We have only seen half of a season get played. We haven't seen them play against the SEC. And, of course, I'm taking that into consideration. But I cannot hide from what I have been watching from this Auburn basketball team. This team is very fun to watch, and they're very good at what they do. If this team didn't get a little screwed versus Duke, we'd be talking about the number 1 team in the country, and they would have been that for a while now. But Tennessee doesn't have a loss, so they can't possibly find a reason to move Tennessee back a spot. It's stupid. I hate it. So kind of looking across the board here, I chose the 2021-22 basketball team. That's the one where you got Bari and Walker on it. The 2018-2019 team, of course, everyone knows the Final Four team. You know, we've got Jared and Chuma Okiki and that guy Bryce Brown shooting that thing from way downtown. And lastly, another team that I think was on pace to do some great things before COVID hit, the 2019-2020 team where Samir Dowdy was having a season. You had an NBA player, Isaac Okoro. Of course, you had a few NBA players across the board here. But, of course, Isaac Okoro not able to finish his career as a Tiger because of COVID ending the season before conference tournament started off. But, I mean, the strength here, kind of looking at the rosters, I went and got the starting 5, the 6-man, and the bench. After that, I tried to go as deep as I possibly could. So, when it comes to depth of the roster, this team has it pretty handedly. I mean, if you're looking at, you just kind of go down a little bit, the 6-man, Todd Pettiford is this year's 6-man. KD Johnson was the 21-22 6-man. Malik Dunbar was the 6-man for the 18-19 team. And Anthony McLemore, he averaged less minutes than Austin Wiley, but that kind of goes either way based on where Auburn was standing at that moment in time. So, yeah, Anthony I have as the 6-man for the 19-20 team. Behind that 6-man, you got Chaney Johnson for this year's team, Devin Cambridge for the 21-22 team. That's kind of where this side of that team kind of falls apart. Horace Spencer for the 18-19 team, which I'd say is a little bit better. And the 19-20, again, this is kind of where they fall off as well with Devin Cambridge yet again. Behind that, I mean, all this year's team has some guys who were there to play defense, mostly Simo for this year's team. Dylan Cardwell for the 21-22 team, which kind of tells you how long he's been a Tiger. But at that point in time, Cardwell then was not the Cardwell of today. Cardwell today is the starting center for the Auburn basketball. D'Angelo Purifoy for the 18-19 team was listed as the 8th man or 9th man based on minutes per game, and Jamal Johnson on the 19-20 team. So I think when it comes to the bench, this year's team has every other team beat. And I don't know how close it is because I feel like if you went from the 6th man to the 10th man and use that 5 against the other 5s, I think you'd have this year's team take down every other 5. The only thing you're missing out of those 5 is height. But with the effort you get out of Simo and Jaheim, I think you're probably feeling pretty good about yourself going forward. Now, the starting 5s. Again, this year's starting 5 is Miles Kelly, Denver Jones, Chad Baker Mazzara, Janiah Broom, and Dylan Cardwell. Janai Broome, currently the best player on a basketball court in college basketball, doing things that no one's ever seen before. You play again, and I think the starting fives are a lot tougher to look at because I think every single one of these teams is something a little bit different. So whenever you had the 2021 and 22 team, you had a lot of reliance on what you could do in the paint. You had Bari, you had Walker. Those two were pretty much unstoppable in the paint, but guard play slowed down this team a lot. You had a lot of inconsistencies when it came to what you got day in and day out from your backcourt. So yeah, that's the weak spot of that team. And I think Miles Kelly and Denver Jones and CBM, of course, outweigh Wendell Green, Zeb Jasper, and Alan Flanagan, especially consistency. Alan Flanagan was very inconsistent during his time as a Tiger. The 18-19 team, though, those guards were different. You had Chumo Kiki, you had Bryce Brown, you had Jared Harper. And again, Bryce Brown shot that thing from way downtown. The dude, this team literally had to get college basketball to move the three-point line back. That's how dominant this team was from beyond the arc. So that's a danger factor going into, and of course, this team has the success after the season. The postseason worked out really well for that team. But the height, the paint was where that team kind of failed. I mean, you had Chumo Kiki and Samir Dowdy as your 3 and 4. Anthony McLemore is pretty much your 5. You played a lot of small ball. Anthony was great playing defense, but didn't have the height. You didn't have a lot out of Austin Wiley and Horace Spencer out of your 5s. Austin Wiley hadn't really come to his own until that next year that was cut short, where he seemed to be doing pretty well. In that season, Horace was off and on at times. The 5s and the 4 and the 5, I mean, it's really a debate between the 24 and 25, or 24 and 22 teams with Bari versus Janai and Dylan Cardwell versus Walker. Now, the 2019-2020 team, he had Denzel Purefoy, who was getting some starting minutes as the 4. Austin Wiley, of course, was getting the 5 because he was having a great year that season. But again, I think that the balance of Janai and Dylan Cardwell is such a great mixture. Yeah, do I think Walker was a better 5 than Dylan Cardwell? Yes. But they work out. Dylan Cardwell works a lot better with Janai because of Janai's ability to score. Now, Bari, of course, was a freshman, and he was one of the best in the country at that. He was a top 3 pick in the draft. I was mad at the time that the Thunder didn't draft him to pick Chet Holmgren, but I'm not mad about that now because Chet is a dog, and my Thunder are one of the best teams in the NBA. So I can't be too mad about that. But I think the back court or the front court, sorry, they mesh better. This team plays together better than the teams we've been talking about. That 21-22 team that got all the way up to the number 1 team in the country. This team should have been the number 1 team in the country all throughout the season. We should be talking about what this team needs to do to keep that number 1 ranking all the way through the year. But we're not, because the AP poll sucks, which is simple. This team proves that the AP poll sucks. It just does. And I don't think we needed this team to prove that. We pretty much all knew that. But regardless, this year's team is deeper. It plays better. I mean, you're watching a lot of team ball get played. And I added to an account here. I mean, you talk about like how the season ended for each team. The 21-22 team kind of got embarrassed in March Madness. They lost in the round of 32. We don't know what this team's ending looks like yet. So I don't want to hold that, and of course I'll knock on wood as many times as I need to. But watching these teams and going back at it, I made a list of weaknesses for what hurt these teams the most throughout the season. Starting off with like the oldest and moving on to this year's team, the 2018-19 team that made it all the way to the Final Four. The weaknesses this team had wasn't anything they were doing off the court. I mean, they lived and died by the 3, which could be a weakness. But you can't help but think, and you can't help and do the what if scenario. If Chuma Okeke did not get hurt that year, we'd be talking about a Cinderella story of that Auburn basketball team who took down so many blue bloods on their way to taking down Texas Tech in the national championship. Whoever won the Virginia game was going to win the championship. It was simple and easy as that. Without Chuma, it gets so much more difficult. And, of course, you can't forget that Virginia double dribbled and Auburn got cheated, which makes me tear up to this day. Yeah, that's really the only weakness I found with this team. I mean, you had Bryce Brown and Jared Harper, who one of the best guard combos in Auburn basketball history. One of the most fun combos and just my basketball knowledge. I love watching those two guys play. Could light it up from anywhere. Nowhere was too far for either one of those two. And I mean, if you talk about like defensive weaknesses for the other teams, I mean, if you can't guard the perimeter, Jared Harper and Bryce Brown were going to have a field day with you, especially because Jared Harper, while being however tall he was, I mean, 5'8", 5'7", somewhere in that, could dunk on anybody. I think I was rooting for him to dunk on Zion when they played against Duke that year, but I don't think they ever got to actually play against Duke, or if they did, they lost, but never got to actually see it happen. Now going on to 2019-2020 team, their biggest weakness was the fact they could not win a game within the 40-minute span. This team had a double overtime win, and had about 3 or 4 more overtime wins throughout the year. This team could not finish a game in 40 minutes, but they were still winning pretty regularly, and they were winning those games hard-foughtly, but it was taking all the way to overtime to do it. And of course, this team's season ended sooner than others, but this team was finding a way to go. And I mean, they were a tough team. This team had the emergence of Samir Dowdy as a true number 2 scorer. You had the reliance on a NBA star in the making, and Isaac Okoro. Javon McCormick played really good ball that season too. And the emergence of Austin Wiley, who Auburn, if Auburn had him playing at this level in the 18-19 season, it probably would have been a game changer for Auburn. Yeah, the biggest issue that team had was they couldn't win a game within 40 minutes. They needed an extra 5 or 10 minutes to do so. That 21-22 team, again, I said it earlier, but the biggest weakness that team had was the guard play. When it came down to the season end, round of 32 loss to Miami, they locked up Bari and Kessler. Those two couldn't get anything going, and you had to have some self-reliance on what your guards could do. And Wendell had some great moments to the Tiger, but that 21-22 team, he hadn't really found himself yet. He wasn't really the guy. And I think I put him as the starter. I'm not sure Wendell was the starter that year. I think it was KD. But you didn't have the emergence of Wendell as the scorer on the team. And Zepp was never a scorer. He was primarily just used for defense. That's why whoever got subbed out first. I think Wendell was the starter and KD got subbed in for Zepp. But you didn't have any true scorers in your backcourt starting with that team. So yeah, that team season ended because of their lack of guard play. A&M found them out in this tournament. That team won the regular season, did not win the tournament, and that sucks for that team because they could have really used some momentum going forward. Now, going to this year's team, this team has shown moments where they get cold. Like that they fall off in a way. It's not that they fall off, but they forget that the basket is a lot wider than it is. They don't see the basket as a easy target for a little bit. They'll go up by 20 and then they'll start missing shots and they'll shoot 33s in a game and they won't make but 8 of them like they did last night. But I mean, that's really the only weakness I found from this team. I truly believe that this year's team has the potential to do some great and amazing things that Auburn basketball has never seen. I truly believe, and knock on wood if I need to, this team can win a national championship. This team can win a national championship. That's fully why I believe this team is the best basketball team we have seen under Bruce Pearl. And I know last year's team was pretty good. But again, their season kind of fell apart in the end too. This team won that team won the SEC tournament. I could have put them on this list too. But that team had the same weaknesses as the 21-22 team. The guard play was not there. It was very hit or miss. And a lot of times they missed. And there was a lot of self-reliance on Janai Broom. And at times, Janai can't do everything. That's why this team works so well this year. You have Chad Baker-Mazara, who's taken on a leadership role. I mean, he's goofy at times, and he's a fun guy to watch. But whenever the game needs to get serious, Chad Baker-Mazara gets serious. Denver Jones is emerging as one of the best, as the best two-way player in basketball. I mean, he's Auburn's best defender at the guard position, as well as one of their most efficient shooters. I mean, talk about last night, he scored 9 points because he made all three of his shots from beyond the arc. Miles Kelly, when Miles Kelly starts making shots, that basket goes from 10 inches to 10 feet. And everything he shoots goes up and makes it. Now you talk about the guys, Dylan Cardwell again. I can't mention him enough. Dylan Cardwell having a great season himself, emerging as a top center in the sport, and one of the two punch, the 1-2 of him and Janai that work out so well in the paint together. That they just mesh. And I think another thing with this team is that there is a little bit of lack of height whenever you get past Dylan Cardwell. But you talk about these freshmen. Todd Pettiford and Ja'Kai Howard. Ja'Kai, of course, he had that little thing before the season, at the start of the season on the plane. But ever since he got back on the court, I mean, Ja'Kai has been outstanding. I mean, he has been tearing it up. He's made highlight play after highlight play after highlight play after highlight play. If he can just hone in his abilities, dude's gonna be a dog this year. And he already is one. If he can just keep playing that way and give Auburn another reliable scorer off the bench. Because, I mean, you got these two freshmen. Tahai Pettiford has proven already that he is a reliable scorer who could take over a game whenever and wherever he needs to. Ja'Kai, we haven't gotten to see a lot of that yet. You're trying to work him back in. Missouri is going to be a great first test for this team to see where they really stand. Of course, all these opinions could change based on how the rest of the season goes. But I truly believe that, that this starting five, this first three off the bench, of course, with Chaney Johnson, who has emerged this year as one of the best players on the team scoring wise. I mean, Chaney Johnson has the issue with Chaney was always going to be when is he going to catch up to the game? That was the issue last year. Not been an issue this year. Dude has been an absolute hoss all season long. But yeah, just to wrap things up, I mean, we don't have any football to talk about today. Jeffrey Emba is on a visit to Auburn, which I was completely taken aback by because I was like, oh, transfer back to Auburn would be kind of cool. Emba's got a lot of talent. But yeah, my basketball opinion today. I mean, I talked about the game. We'll be talking about the Missouri game coming up. But right now, where it stands, I don't see very many weaknesses in this team. I mean, of course, they have one loss in on the record, but easily overlooked for what they've done so far. This team has taken one of the hardest, as like a power conference team, has taken one of the toughest schedules and turned it into a 12-1 record. Has found a way to take a loss and not even move in the rankings. They've taken on teams like Purdue and beaten the snot out of them, beaten Iowa State in a close game, taking down North Carolina, taking down Memphis, Ohio State, Houston, in Houston for that matter. And you travel to Duke and you kind of shoot yourself in the foot a little bit. SEC play starts up soon, and I can't help but think that this team, they're favored to win every game. I don't think Auburn basketball is going to go all the way through the rest of the season and not lose a game. Because I think it'd be pretty dumb to think that. You're going to have some hiccups on the way. But where this team, when the going gets tough for this team gets better. And I am super excited to see what this rest of the season looks like. I mean, I truly believe this team is one of BP's best. It's a veteran laden team. You got two great freshmen to help with the. I guess I don't really know what that really helps with your team. Todd playing at a level where you think he might leave after a season, and then that leaves you with whatever Jakai decides to do, and then you have a whole empty roster ready to be filled up with high school recruits and transfer portal players galore. But yeah, this team is great. This team is awesome. And again, you just get over those little slumps you get into mid-game. This team can do some great things. Truly, truly believe that. That's going to be this show for today. Nice little 26, 27 minutes by the time we get done with the outro here. So I want to thank everybody for joining and listening into this episode of the College Podcast. I didn't play the commercial because I was in the middle of that little conversation with myself and all of you out there. But don't forget to check out the merch at go to thewarport.com, go to the shop, first page, College Loop hat, second page, Phil Luby t-shirt. You know the drill at this point. That's only one way to support the show. The best way to support the show is, of course, by liking, commenting, and subscribing. Is this basketball team, by this point of the season, do you think this team has the potential to be BP's best team yet? Let me know in the comment section below. Of course, don't forget to follow us on social media at the College Loop, literally everywhere. YouTube too, but Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, the works, all those at the College Loop. And of course, audio versions of the show on Spotify Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music. And with all being said, check me out on Twitter at Tank and on Instagram at Dylan Larck at DYLNLRCK. Now that being said, thanks for watching some of the College Loop Podcast. And as always, War Eagle.